Speaking of films, who has seen Dune Part 2? Oh my gosh. No spoilers. See you on Monday. Well, guess what? I got spoilers for you. That's what I'm talking about tonight is Dune Part 2. Exclusively. This is just to throw you off. I actually just wanted to talk about Dune. Adi and I went to see it on Sunday night, which was cool because we rarely get like a theater experience anymore. And if you haven't seen it, you got to go see it in the theaters. It's a tremendous movie. And it's a good book. But the movie and the book, I'm not going to spoil it. I'm assuming if you're going to see Dune 2, you've seen Dune 1, so there's not much of a spoiler here. But the premise of the book or the movie, the story, is it follows this main character, Paul, as he and his family go to this new planet to kind of rule over this planet, which sounds awesome, except for the fact that this is like a desert planet and there's a very violent indigenous group of people who live there who just want to kill anybody else who lives there. So he goes to this planet and pretty much anything that bad could happen happens. And it follows through these two movies, this main character, Paul, kind of his internal anguish as he tries to discern how to navigate these like incredibly complex situations. Because there's a bunch of like political drama involved. Like I said, there's like this indigenous group of oppressed people who want liberation and they're kind of like turning to him. Can he liberate us? There's also the fact that he could be this prophesied Messiah. So a ton of weird, complex things happening in this book. And for two movies, Paul is like, man, what do I make of this? How do I navigate this? And he's just kind of in turmoil and in anguish. And he's trying to determine, the reason that he's in so much anguish is he's trying to determine what are kind of the governing principles that are going to dictate the way that I relate with people or the decisions that I make. Is it about like me being a freedom fighter? Is it about my family's legacy? Is it about this fact that I could be this Messiah? And there's this, he's torn, right? What is the wisdom through which I will operate? What is going to dictate how I interact with everyone around me? And I'm not going to spoil it, so you got to go see the movie. But ultimately, what's fascinating is I love how the movie captures kind of that animosity and the confusion, the struggle of how do I make this life work? And ultimately, that's the struggle that all of us face, is how do we make our lives work? Ultimately, what are the decisions that we make and how we relate to one another? What are the governing principles that guide the way that we interact with everybody here in this room, as well as everyone outside of this room? Ultimately, what is the source of wisdom that we live through and that we abide by? And where we're at in James is this kind of relational progression that he's been going through. If you think back to James 1, the end of James 1, he says, pure religion is to love orphans and widows. You see that James is making this connection to, I want you to prove your submission to me. I want your walk with me to be exemplified by the actions that you take and how you relate to people. In James 2, he says, aren't you judging one another? Aren't you showing partiality and becoming judges with evil motives? Because you look at the rich person and you elevate them, and you look at the poor person and you kind of push them off to the fringes. And he attacks these believers for the way that they're relating to one another and showing partiality to one another. Last week, Kyle taught about the tongue, how the tongue is a fire, and James is attacking, listen to the way that you talk to one another. So I don't know if you've picked up on this, but so much of James is about how we relate. As people who are walking with the Lord, how do we relate with one another? What do our relationships look like? And it boils down to what we're going to go over here in James 3, the need for wisdom. We need to have relational wisdom. And it can't just be any wisdom. It has to be, if we want our relationships to be successful, it has to be the Lord's wisdom. And also just a pre-clarifier before we get into this, it's important that we recognize that wisdom does not just mean information. It's not just the access of information. If that were the case, we would be a lot better off than how we are currently. We live in the information age. We live in the age of AI, of Google, of any bit of information you want, you have access to it at the tip of your fingers. Yet, relationally, we're more distant and dysfunctional than we've ever been. So the access of information and knowledge does not equate to wisdom. We need to tap into God's wisdom to understand how we can relate with one another. So, we're flipping to James 3. I'm going to go ahead and read the whole passage because it makes sense kind of when you read all of it together. Who is wise? Who among you is wise in understanding? I ask you, who is wise in this room in understanding? John pointed at me. Oh, I don't know about that. Come on, someone's got to take the bait here. Logan, are you wise? Prove it. Let him show by his good behavior, his deeds and the gentleness of wisdom. But if you have bitter jealousy and selfish ambition in your heart, do not be arrogant and so lie against the truth. This wisdom is not that which comes down from above, but is earthly, natural, demonic. For where jealousy and selfish ambition exist, there is disorder in every evil thing. But the wisdom from above is first pure, then peaceable, gentle, reasonable, full of mercy and good fruits, unwavering, without hypocrisy. And the seed whose fruit is righteousness is sown in peace by those who make peace. So he's outlining two different types of wisdom that stand in direct contrast from one another. What he says is wisdom from above. The other is the opposite of that, wisdom not from above, earthly wisdom, wisdom from below. This earthly wisdom he characterizes as being selfish. He calls it natural. This is just our natural way of relating with one another. He straight up calls it demonic. This is demonic wisdom. And this wisdom is what you would call egocentric. It starts with me. I am at the center. My decisions that I make are all influenced by me. What benefits me? And that's how I relate with one another. It's not about other people. It's about me. I'm at the center, and my decisions from a relational context start with me. The result of this is clearly not good. He says the results are disorder and every evil thing, not just some evil things or most evil things, every evil thing. Obviously, the Lord stands in opposition to this. I like how Paul says in 1 Cor 1:20, where is the wise man? Again, I ask you in this room, where's the wise man? Don't point to me. Logan, sorry, Logan. Todd pointed to you. You are the wise man. Where is the scribe? Where's the debater of this age? Has God not made foolish the wisdom of the world? So even the most wisest of people in this world, God has made them foolish. His wisdom is superior to the wisdom that this world has to offer. The other wisdom is wisdom from above. This is characterized amongst many things as pure, peaceable, gentle. And when you read these characteristics that define godly wisdom, doesn't it come off as kind of weak? This is the person that sounds like a doormat. This is the person that seems like they just kind of lie down. I'm a peaceable guy. I'm not trying to ruffle any feathers here. I'm just a godly, wise, peaceable, gentle person. Please just walk all over me. I invite you to. However, the Lord in the Bible says that actually in God's wisdom there is immense power. That's what he was saying there in 1 Corinthians, what Paul was saying in 1 Corinthians, that God's wisdom triumphs over this world's wisdom. God's wisdom is so much more powerful than any amount of money or knowledge or skills. And God's wisdom starts not from within. I'm not the center, but he is the center, which makes sense because ultimately, wisdom is, again, it's not this idea of knowledge acquisition, but when the Bible talks about wisdom, a lot of times it's this skill of living. And we want to skillfully live in reality. And who is the author of reality? Guess what? Not me, but the Lord. So if we want to operate in the Lord's wisdom, that means we are operating in reality. And the results, it says, are righteousness and peace. So in all of, remember, again, James is highly relational. We're in this relational section of James. In all of our relationships, we are operating out of one of these two spheres. We are either relating under wisdom from above, or wisdom from below. When we talk, when we hang out, when we spend time together, when we walk in this door and fellowship, we are relating through one of these two means. And it's easy to see the fruit that comes from earthly wisdom, from the wisdom from below. That's just all around us. When we read about just broken, and we see and we deal with people who come to us from broken families, struggling with bitterness, resentment, lashing out, mockery, and gossip. That's the byproducts of earthly wisdom. And we're challenged here tonight to not operate like that. Within the body of Christ, we do not operate through the world's way of relating with one another. Why? Not because we're better than anybody else, because we have our acts together, but because the Lord is transforming us. He's changing our hearts. He's taking us from being these earthly, demonic, demon people to being people who are godly, peaceful, pure. So tonight, the task for us is to take stock of our relationships. Think about the way that we relate with one another. And again, it doesn't need to just be in this room, but anybody outside of this room, any relationship that you have, how are they typically characterized? Are they characterized by disorder? Do you feel that there is disorder in your relationships, confusion in your relationships? Or do you feel like do you feel at peace in your relationships? Are they superficial and shallow? Or are they intimate and harmonious? And this goes for everybody in this room, because it's easy to think that we have wisdom. I'm successful. I'm educated. I got a good job. I've been to school. I'm savvy. I'm wealthy. I know how to make life work. But again, we need the reminders that worldly success and knowledge does not equate to relational godly wisdom. I've seen some incredibly well-educated, wealthy, capable, savvy people who don't know how to make a relationship work. The Lord is guiding us tonight on what it looks like to have victorious, successful, godly relationships. And he's calling on us to step out of the natural way of relating. I do love how James just straight up calls this natural. We don't have to try to relate like this. It's just natural for us to relate from this superficial, shallow, demonic way of relating. It's natural. It comes natural to us. It's just how we do it. But he's calling on us to relate with one another supernaturally, in a way that is unnatural, in a way that is not our natural inclination, not the way that the culture relates. We are relating with one another in a counter-cultural way. So let's look at some of these characteristics that he's defining with these wisdom. The first one we see with the wisdom from below is bitter jealousy and selfish ambition. And the sense here is someone who is pushing their own agenda, someone who's interested in getting what they want. I'm operating from this kind of egocentric position where when I'm relating with you and I'm talking with you, or when I'm hanging out with people, my question is, how can I get what I want? Not what do other people around me need, but what do I want? What do I need? I'm the focal point. I'm the source of wisdom. I'm the source of reality. So everything has to interact and intersect with me. How am I benefiting from this? I see this in the work environment all the time. I know many of you have full-time jobs, and man, is work not just characterized by selfish ambition, by people like pushing their own agendas all the time? My job is we make government websites that are really ugly, and we try and make them pretty. So I have a team of people who are trying to make it look pretty, and the government has a team of people that we're working with, and we just hate each other. And we go into these meetings, And there's like, I'm sitting in the comfort of my own home on a Microsoft Teams meeting, and I can just physically feel this tension. There's palpable tension because everyone just wants to do things their way. And then we get off these calls, and then my team meets, and they're like, they're so dumb. They don't know what they're doing about. They don't know what they're talking about. They don't know how to do this. And thank God they hired us, because we know what we're doing. We're super smart. We're the wise people here. We're the scribes. And I guarantee you, after that meeting, when we're complaining about them, guess what they're doing? They're complaining about us. And the entire time, it's not about what's the right way of doing this, but rather, what's my way? I care about my way. I want to promote my vision. And I received this career advice from Keith a long time ago. And I got to tell you, it is just the most profound, helpful career advice I've ever been given in my life. And I call on all of you, if you haven't done this, to exercise this, because this is really what godly wisdom looks like. To go to your boss and say, hey, how can I help you today? How can I help you achieve your vision? Which is hard to do because, let's face it, all of our bosses are dumb and they don't know what they're doing, right? No, they're the boss for a reason. And when we step in, not, dropping this selfish ambition. Hey man, you make the big bucks, I don't. I don't want you to worry about me. I care about you. I want your vision to come into fruition. They will look on you with such high praise. They will just heap so much praise upon you because you're the only person in this work environment who is dropping and setting aside the selfish ambition. My job, I do not operate in this job to fulfill my own personal selfish desires. I'm here to serve you. How can I help? That has done tremendous, this has just transformed my work relationships. And that's bringing godly wisdom to the table. I'm setting aside my selfish ambition. But we do this in ministry too, right? We serve in ways that fit our agenda. And it's hard to see this sometimes because I'm serving, right? I'm doing something helpful, right? But ultimately, I'm only serving in ways that maybe benefit me or put me at the front and center, or ways that are most comfortable for me. I'm not interested in meeting specific needs. Like, what's the need that actually needs met here? But ultimately, it's what do I want to do? And it's easy to see how even this selfish ambition can infiltrate the way that we do ministry together, where we want to promote ourselves. He also says, so lie against the truth. And what's the connection here? What's the connection between like the selfish ambition, promoting yourself, and lying against the truth? The idea here is when we are promoting ourselves, the sentiment behind that is I'm important. I matter. I'm the best. I know how things work. When in reality, that's not the case. And we're just lying to ourselves. We think we're the best. We think we know what we're doing, but we don't. We're ultimately putting up a front. We're putting on a facade. We're wearing a mask, and we're trying to lie about who we actually are. I've noticed this trend throughout my life and my years in ministry, and I've noticed it a lot in myself, which is why I think maybe I'm so sensitive to it in other people. And that is, the people who are the most insecure are the people who are the most proud. Have you noticed this? The people who are the most insecure are the ones who are just like the most arrogant, prideful people. And again, I say that because I am an insecure, proud person. And that comes from, man, I really have to put this mask on. I have to put this facade up. I don't feel good about myself, so I have to pretend to be someone I'm not. I have to convince you that I'm actually better than I am. So I'm playing a game, and I'm putting this front up. I'm painting a picture that is not true. This isn't who I actually am. And we get defensive in those positions because when someone tries to call us out on it, or if someone maybe sees an area in our life that we need some correction or guidance on, we get defensive because I don't want you to see the real me. You're kind of chipping away at this wall, this defense that I've put up. And we get anxious about that. You can't see the real me, so I have to defend myself. Or maybe I react in shock and awe. I can't believe that you would say that about me. When we're just surprised that our bubble's been burst, that we've been found out, and we try so hard to not let people find out who we really are. But I gotta say, how liberating it is to take the mask off. How freeing it is to say, you know what, this is me. And I'm not that great. And I do need help. Because we are living in reality at that point. We're living in we're not lying against the truth. It is so freeing to drop the selfish ambition at that point, to drop the facade. And then it's not a big deal. I don't have to take everything personally. If you have an issue that you want to bring up with me, you know what? Praise the Lord that you care enough about me to bring that up. I don't have to defend myself and make sure that, and convince you that's not true, man. I got it all put together. It's so freeing and liberating to drop the selfish ambition and let you speak truth into my life, because you're doing that because you love me and you care about me. That is godly wisdom. I'm going to breeze through these, but he also says earthly. This is just the horizontal perspective. How does the world measure success? Through these temporary measures, these temporary priorities, through material motives and acknowledgement and wealth and success. Natural, again, he says natural. I love that. This is just the earthly human life apart from God. The Greek word is like, I'm going to butcher the pronunciation, but psychikos, which is where we get psyche. We get the word psyche. And the point here is our source of wisdom, our motives come from within. My thoughts, my attitudes, my interests, my pursuits, these natural pursuits of myself dictate the way that I relate with people. And then last but not least, demonic. You have you ever thought, man, by me just a little bit of light selfish ambition, never hurt anybody. Okay, you demon. He calls it straight up demonic. And maybe this isn't overtly like satanic, but we are aligning ourselves with principles that are contrary to God's truth. We are measuring our success and our value and the way that we relate in a way that is not in alignment with the Lord. It's demonic. Now, wisdom from above, on the other hand, he says first pure. I don't know if you caught that, but he doesn't say pure, comma this, comma this. He says first pure, then he moves on to these things. Because first and foremost, God's wisdom is pure. And the way to think about this is it's not diluted. We aren't trying to mix it with anything else. It's not, well, you know what? I'm going to take a little bit of God's wisdom here, and I'm going to mix that in with mine. And I'm going to have like this little wisdom concoction that that combines the Lord's way and my way. Because, you know, I'm not dumb, and God kind of knows what he's talking about. So let's just see what happens when we mix these two sources of wisdom. God says no. His wisdom is pure. It is undiluted. He is the governing authority in my life. And I appreciate this because I need restraint in my life. I need these guiding principles. And when I'm viewing a situation, it's actually, again, nice to have this guiding principle, this restraint to say, okay, am I viewing this purely through the lens of the Lord? Or am I trying to figure out how I can shoehorn my way into this too? I want to mix his wisdom with my wisdom. No, his wisdom is pure. It is undiluted. He also says peaceable, someone who doesn't fly off the handle, someone who isn't hypersensitive or easy to offend, someone who is peace-loving. I'm stepping into a tense situation, and my concern here is, how can I bring peace into this situation, into this relationship? Someone who's gentle, someone who is willing to hear you out. We have all been around the guy, or I don't know why I say guy, it could be a girl too, who most of the time it is a guy, who you are terrified to bring anything up to because you know it's going to be a war. Man, I've seen this, and I'm too afraid to bring it up because as soon as I do, he's going to lash out. That is someone who is not gentle. That's someone who's cruel or touchy. Reasonable, The net translates that accommodating, the sense of someone who is teachable, someone who isn't stubborn. This is my stance and I'm going to take it. And then someone brings truth to bear to the situation. Are you willing to yield? Are you willing to be teachable, to be reasonable? Or are we going to be stubborn and no matter what, no, this is my stance. I'm unwavering in this. And he does say unwavering later, but that's in a good way. Someone who is not reasonable is someone who isn't willing to listen to truth. They're not teachable. Full of mercy and good fruit, looking at someone with compassion. The world so often seeks justice and punishment or ridicule or judgment. We can look at people and extend mercy, kindness, good fruits. We want to promote them. We care about them. We want to see them promoted. We want to see them succeed, to bear fruit. Typically, we want to give ourselves an advantage, but godly wisdom seeks to give other people the advantage. Again, unwavering. This is someone who is firm and clear. I am standing with the truth. This is someone who, again, they aren't shakable because I know that I am operating from a position of the Lord's authority and from his wisdom right now. And I'm not going to bet on that, to bend on that. I am unwavering. I am without hypocrisy. Other translations say sincere. And the word hypocrite in the Greek initially was used to define actors. Actors were hypocrites because they were people who wore masks. And again, this godly wisdom is a call for us to take the masks off, to relate with one another in a way that is sincere, that is without hypocrisy. When I step into a tense situation or someone wrongs me, I'm bitter at somebody, how easy is it to think, man, Connor did this, that, and the other thing. I can't believe the ways that he has wronged me. And he's giving me a thumbs up right now. That's the icing on the cake. He gives me a thumbs up on how much he has wronged me. But I'm not considering, how am I culpable here? What have I done to contribute to this? Can I drop the hypocrisy and pursue, again, pursue peace in this situation? Connor, I'm sorry. No thumbs up there. But someone who is not a hypocrite is willing to admit, you know what, I have a problem too. And the results of this, one results in disorder in every evil thing. Again, what's wrong with just a little bit of self-promotion? I just want to make sure that I'm taken care of. I don't know. How about every evil thing? He is not pulling punches here. So disorder in every evil thing versus peace and righteousness. Again, what defines our relationships? When we think about the way that we relate to people, is it filled with confusion? I love how Paul says in 1 Corinthians 14:33 that God is not a God of confusion, but peace. And the word that Paul uses there for confusion is the same word that James uses for disorder. So it's interesting because the results of the wisdom from below are literally anti-God. God says, I am not like this. I am not a God of confusion, but I am a God of peace. So we have these paths whenever we relate to people where we can start with the jealousy and the selfish ambition. I'm stepping into a relationship or a situation, and I want to promote myself. I'm trying to put forth my agenda. And when I do that, when I'm trying to control the situation, when I'm trying to stack the cards in my favor, I get anxious. Have you felt that? When I'm trying to paint a picture, when I'm trying to make sure that I win here, I get so anxious because I'm desperately trying to control everything. And the more I try and control things, the more I realize I can't. And the more confused I feel. Do you see how this worldly wisdom leads to confusion? And we need to recognize that we have an opportunity to break that chain, that trajectory. Can I drop my selfish ambition? Can I maybe promote someone else instead of myself? And the result of that is peace. We can break that chain and experience peace. And if you're here tonight and you're visiting, I want you to realize that the Lord wants to set you on a new path. All of us have been subjected to this worldly way of relating our entire lives. where we've been trod upon, we've been cast aside, we've been the victims of other people trying to promote themselves. We've been the victims of other people's selfish ambition. And we've been cast aside and rejected. And we felt that. We see and experience the fruits of the world's wisdom and the world's way of relating. The Lord wants you to realize and to recognize that he is offering up something new, something fresh, something that is different. And if you've been hanging out with any people here for any period of time, I'm sure you have recognized that there is a way of relating here that is different. That's something that many people, whenever they come to the Lord, that's one thing that they remark about is, man, the people here just related so much differently, not only with one another, but with me. And I got to tell you, that's not a coincidence. That's because the people in this room who are walking with the Lord have had their hearts transformed in ways where they are dropping the selfish ambition and they can pursue you and they can pursue one another. And the Lord wants to invite you into that way of relating, into that relationship. And it starts with responding to his invitation to know you. He wants to know you, and he has extended that invitation. Will you respond to that invitation to know you? Will you step into a relationship with him and let him transform the way that you relate with one another? And one of the results it says here of godly wisdom is peace. And of course, he's talking here about external peace, peace with other people. Next week, he's talking about literal fighting. Why are you guys fighting with one another? So we can experience relational peace, but there's also a component where we can experience inner peace, where we have this victorious sense of peace in our own hearts. There's probably been a situation, if you've been walking with the Lord for a while, where you have stepped into a scenario with God's wisdom. Someone has been struggling, or you want to maybe call someone out on something, or maybe you're trying to love somebody, or trying to witness to somebody, and you've been praying about this. You've been going to the Word about it. You've been seeking insight from other people. And you step into this with God's wisdom, and things go south. Have you been there? Have you felt that? Yeah, it happens all the time. Does that mean that God's wisdom is faulty? Of course not. That just means that we are fleshly, free will people who can make the decisions to not listen. But in those moments, we can still be at peace. Even if things don't go well, we can still experience peace. You know what? I stepped into this with godly wisdom and it didn't go well, but I still feel at peace here. That's victorious. That's victorious love, because I know that I am standing on godly wisdom. If I went in there promoting myself, if I went in there doing things how I want to do things, I'm not going to feel at peace. I'm going to be upset that things didn't go the way that I wanted to. What did I do wrong? How could I have changed this? Versus, no, I feel at peace because I am standing on God's wisdom. 1 Timothy 1:5, the goal of our instruction is love from a clear conscience. Again, as we take stock of our relational world, is your conscience clear? Is it at peace? Or is it full of confusion and disorder? The bottom line is, we need wisdom from above. We need this in our world today. We need this in every potential scenario, in every situation. We certainly need this as a parent, because every parent knows that the default position of a house with young kids is just disorder. That's the natural demonic state of a household with little kids, is disorder. And you know what we need? We need godly wisdom. And I meant to ask if I could plug this, but I'm going to plug it anyway. We're going to have some parenting workshops coming up, which is an awesome opportunity. What does it look like to bring godly wisdom into my home, into the way that I raise my kids? Because I tell you what, I look at the way that I want to relate with my kids, the way that my family has always done it. This is the McCullough way, and I turned out halfway decent. Well, that's because of the Lord. So I can try and bring my way into this, or I can bring into my son's life a godly way of relating. This also goes for all of us looking back at our parents. I was talking about this at the college IP on Thursday, and it certainly resonated with them. But this sense where one day you grow up and you move away from home. and you realize, man, my parents sucked. Or at least that's what you think. And you look back at your parents and you're like, wow, I can't believe my dad would treat me like that. And how many of you have played the game of whose parents were worse? And you just compare how your parents have wronged you? We play that game all the time because we look back at our parents with judgment. Yet we can step in with godly wisdom and look back with mercy. I remember experiencing liberation in that respect, where I remember for years I would complain about my parents, and I think I was complaining to Keith or somebody, and they were like, it sounds like your parents really loved you, they just didn't really know how to do it. And I was like, that hurts to hear, because you're right. And it was so freeing for me to one day call my dad and say, you know what, Dad? I used to get bitter and angry at you all the time, but you loved me. And you maybe didn't know how to do it. And now I'm a parent, and I'm like, man, I really want to love my kids, but I don't always know how to do it. But there's a godly wisdom in looking back with mercy at our parents, at our lives. Maybe they didn't do it perfect, but I'm sure they loved you. Can you extend that compassion and that mercy instead of judgment? Because I got to say, having a 4-year-old and a 2-year-old, I have cleaned poop off of almost every surface in my house, my wife and I. If in 16 years he moves out and was like, my dad was a dick, I'd be like, you know what, boy? Let's talk about this, all right? You want to go there? But it's awesome. It is so liberating to extend grace in those situations. What about our roommates? Your wife is a roommate. Maybe you're married. My kids are my roommates. But some of you live in ministry apartments. Some of you live with people maybe who don't even know the Lord. I don't know if I have ever heard a roommate say, or someone say, man, my roommate is just so clean. They are always taking the trash out on time. I couldn't ask for a cleaner, better roommate. That's never the case. It's always, I tell you what, if they don't take the trash out one more time, they're going to sleep in it. And every dish that piles up is going to be under their pillowcase. Now, there does need to be accountability, but can we bring mercy and gentleness and peace? Can we be peacemakers with our roommates? And I got to say, in our work environment, in any environment where we are interacting with people who don't know the Lord, and we're interacting and bringing godly wisdom into those relationships, they recognize that something is different. There's a lady that I work with who, going into these meetings with government people that we hate, she says, I got to channel my inner Ian, because she's just like a pugnacious person. And I don't say that because I know how to relate, but the Lord has transformed the way that I relate with people. And I'm so thankful for that, because again, people recognize you're different. You are relating in a way that is different. And there's plenty of other places where we need this godly wisdom. And my question is the Lord putting something on your heart here tonight? Is he putting a relationship or a situation, a scenario on your heart where he's calling on you to relate somewhere differently? And I pray that the answer for many of us is yes. You know, I do want to relate differently. I want to relate with this godly wisdom. The biggest question now is, how do we get it? Yes, that sounds awesome. I want to bring godly wisdom into my relationships. How do I get that wisdom? I'm glad you asked. James does talk about it, but I was wondering if you guys want to go on a journey with me to Job, the book of Job. Yeah? I hope you do, because I'm going there anyway. Job 28, and if you've ever read Job, it's 3 chapters of the most miserable things that could ever happen to a person, followed by 20-something chapters of the most depressing dialogue you've ever read in your life, where they are searching for wisdom. How can I make sense of this situation that has happened to Job? How can we relate to him? How can we discuss the fact that his kids died, his wife died, he lost everything, he got sick, everything that he ever had is gone? What's the wisdom in this situation? And Job 28 is this narrator interlude in the book of Job. And I'm not going to read all of it tonight. I really wish I could. I trimmed it as much as I could, and I looked back and I was like, I trimmed like 4 verses from this chapter, but it's just such a good chapter. So let's go on a journey with me. Close your eyes if you're not too tired and picture what he is putting together here in Job 28. Wisdom from Job 28. Surely there is a mine for silver and a place where they refine gold, Iron is taken out from the dust and copper is smelted from rock. Man puts an end to darkness, and to the furthest limit he searches out. The rock in gloom and deep shadow. Earth's rocks are the source of sapphires, and its dust contains gold. So he's painting this vivid picture. I illustrated it one time. I should have taken a picture of man, and this is written thousands of years ago, which makes it even more impressive, of mankind drilling into the deepest surfaces of the earth to find these precious minerals and gold. The path no bird of prey knows, nor has the falcon's eye caught sight of it. The proud beasts have not trodden it, nor has the fierce lion passed over it. So even Earth's most valiant, impressive, amazing, powerful creatures can't even fathom what mankind is capable of. He puts his hand to the flint. He overturns the mountains at the base. He hews out channels through the rocks, and in his eye sees anything precious. But where can wisdom be found? That's a dang good question, isn't it? Where can wisdom be found? And where is the place of understanding? Man does not know its value, nor is it found in the land of the living. The deep say, it's not in me. And the sea says, it's not with me. Pure gold cannot be given in exchange for it, nor can silver be weighed as its price. Where then does wisdom come from? And where is the place of understanding? Thus it is hidden from the eyes of all living and concealed from the birds of the sky. Abaddon and death say, with our ears we have heard a report of it. So again, mankind, capable of accomplishing impressive, amazing things. Yet where can we find wisdom? We can mine into the earth and find precious metals. But you know what we can't find there? Wisdom. Where can wisdom be found? God understands its ways, and he knows its place. He said to man, behold, the fear of the Lord, that is wisdom, and to depart from evil is understanding. Wisdom is not easy to come by. Wisdom isn't something that's just doled out to anybody and everybody. We can, and it would be interesting to have an updated Job 28, right? And Elon Musk has sent a man to Mars, and we have dug into the deepest trenches of the ocean. Yet guess what? We still don't have wisdom. We still cannot find wisdom. Because wisdom isn't something that we seek out and gain, but it's something that is given to us. Where? The fear of the Lord. Lord, I have to put you in the right place. You are the creator of all things. You are the creator of me. I recognize that, and I respect that. I honor that. I am holding you up as the only source of wisdom, and I know that I cannot attain that myself. Wisdom isn't found, but it is received from the Lord. It starts with the fear of the Lord. This is why his word is so important. He has revealed so much to us through his word, and he invites us to seek that out. Again, you don't just stumble upon wisdom. You seek it out from the Lord with a heart of humility, and he gives it to you. Can you seek out the Lord in his word and find his wisdom? It's also helpful to understand or view this access of wisdom, how we obtain wisdom, by comparing the list of attributes we see here with the fruits of the Spirit. But the fruit of the Spirit is love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, self-control. Against such things there is no law. Why is it called the fruit of the Spirit? Why isn't it called the fruit of really hard work? Why isn't it called the fruit of studying a lot? Because we don't produce it. The Spirit does. The Spirit grows these things in us. The Lord wants to transform your heart. He wants to transform our hearts. He wants to take us from people who are earthly and natural and seek ourselves and transform our hearts to be people who are peaceful, gentle, merciful, reasonable. And we seek that out in the Lord. James said earlier, but if any of you lacks wisdom, let him ask God. Ask God if you need wisdom. And God who gives to all generously and without reproach, and it will be given to him. Come to the Lord with humility and recognize our need for wisdom. As I was studying for this, something struck me about my prayer life, especially my relational prayer life. And that's typically when I am praying for something, What do we pray for, right? We pray for patience, pray for protection, pray for help. Sometimes I just straight up pray for intervention, like, Lord, just do something with this guy. Lord, change his heart. And I'm not saying there's something wrong with those, but what struck me is how often do I say, Lord, give me the wisdom to navigate this? Instead of us praying for the circumstances to change, what if we prayed for the wisdom to deal with it? Do you see how different that is? Lord, I'm coming in. I'm going to see my family. I don't know how that's going to go. Lord, I pray that it's peaceful. Lord, I pray that it's gentle. I pray that my dad comes in and that we can relate and that he has a soft heart. But Lord, if that doesn't happen, I pray that you give me the wisdom to know how to navigate this. Lord, I'm going to reach out to somebody and I know they're really against you. I pray that you're on their hearts, that you can pierce their heart, that you can do something there. But also, Lord, I pray for wisdom. I need help here. I know how I want to handle this, but Lord, I'm interested in how you want to handle this. I want to approach this with your wisdom. I'm going to confront somebody. I'm going to confess a sin. I don't know how it's going to pan out. And I can pray for the circumstances to change, but ultimately, many of us, myself included, and this is the Lord put this on my heart. How often do I pray for wisdom? Instead of just the circumstances to change, what if we prayed for wisdom to handle it? And we need humility with that, to recognize, you know what, I don't have the wisdom to handle this. I don't really know what I'm doing. Lord, I need your wisdom. I'm coming to you empty-handed with humility. Lord, I want to take the mask off. I want to set aside the selfish ambition, and I want you to guide me into this relationship. And this humility is important because the lie for so many of us who have been walking with the Lord for a long time is like, we know what we're doing. I've been to hundreds of CTs. I've been in cell group for years. I've been in discipleship forever. I've taken LTC and basic. I know what I'm doing. I know how to handle situations. Does even spiritual knowledge make you wise? Paul says no. You can just be a noisy gong. You might know everything. You might have every CT from the past year memorized. Does that mean you have the wisdom to navigate every relationship? No. We need to, with humility, approach the Lord and seek his wisdom. Proverbs 3:5-6, trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not on your own understanding. In all your ways submit to him, and he will make your path straight. My own understanding is, again, this is how I want to relate. This is how I want to do things. This is the way that I would handle the situation if I were you, God. This is what I would do. That's earthly and natural. But submit to him, seek his wisdom, and he will make your path straight. This is what it looks like to bring godly wisdom in this situation. So I'll end with just this brief summary. This fact that we need God's wisdom, but it's not something that we attain to, but it's something that the Lord develops in us. It's not about us trying, Lord, I need to try really hard to be more peaceful. Lord, I need to try really hard to have humility. Lord, I need to try really hard to be pure. Lord, transform me. Transform my heart. Give me a heart of flesh that is inclined towards your wisdom. So it's not about being better, but it's about turning to the Lord. So my challenge for us is to ask the Lord, really to ask ourselves, will we let the Lord develop wisdom in our lives? Will we let him transform our hearts and instill in us a new way of relating? And that's what I got for James 3.